This is Matthew Alvarez here at CPAC 2023 with Total News. Joining me right now is the first to announce presidential candidate Corey Stapleton from Montana, former Secretary of State, you said?
Correct, yep.
Tell us your thoughts about the country right now and what would you do if you were in office?
You know, we have a real uncertain time. Of course, I think both sides across the aisle kind of realize that our current president, we just heard he had cancer on his skin and he's older, and a lot of people are thinking he may not run. So we're probably going to have a new president. I know that, and I'm the first to announce on the Republican side. I actually think we've got issues that aren't even being addressed. I think that issues of the day that people are talking about aren't necessarily the ones that I would take on in my first 100 days of office. For example, my campaign is a lot about pay it forward. Anybody who's ever had somebody pay for their food or their coffee ahead of them and understands what that concept is. But I think our country is really focused on spending a ton of money on the older generations, and my focus would be to reinvest into the future the way that our grandparents did. I'm a former naval officer. Those people who fought in Vietnam and world wars and made this world better for us, I think that we're squandering now. And I don't care, Democrats, Republicans alike. Both presidents, the last presidents, have spent trillions and trillions of dollars and put us in debt. That's not conservative. As a conservative, I think the best thing that we can do is spend only what we're bringing in and invest in the future, which includes world-class education for our kids, which includes paying our debts and our bills as they're due. Strengthening American sovereignty, but at the same time acknowledging that we are a world leader, so we stand strong for a lot of the promises that our grandparents made.
What are your thoughts about President Donald Trump?
My opponent can speak for himself. He does that very well. I haven't really paid attention to him since he was put out of office a couple years ago, so he can speak for himself.
Your thoughts about the 2020 election, though? Do you think that he won that election legitimately, or do you not take a stance on that at all and you're just looking for the future at this point?
No, of course not. I mean, that was just a political gimmick at the time, and I think the Republican Party kind of, took that as we would for any Republican primary candidate. So whether it was McCain or Romney or George Bush or Bob Dole or Bush or Reagan, the leader of the party gets to set the political tactics. And the former president chose to say that the election was going to be crooked, and he did that even before the election. But as one of the people who certified the election, obviously 2/3 of the American secretaries of state are actually very conservative Republicans like I was. Everybody knew it was a fair election, and there was no question. I think Joe Biden won by 100 electoral votes, so it wasn't even a very close election. And
I mean, we can agree on the fact of conservatism and freedom. I will disagree on that claim of the election fraud, but that's my opinion and that's yours, and we don't have to get into that debate right now. But
well, that's not an opinion. That was certified, and if you believe in constitutional government, which conservatives do, there's 3 branches of government. If there's 1 out of 2,000 politicians who think that there's something wrong with an election, they can take it to the 3rd branch of government, which that candidate did, and 60 different times they said, no, it's a legitimate election, and you had conservatives throughout the country that certified the election. There was nothing wrong with that election. So you can't just say it's an opinion of fraud. There was a certification. We know that election, he won against Hillary Clinton by virtually the same tally of electoral votes as Joe Biden won in 2020. It was not that close of an election.
There was a ton of fraud, and it's all over the map. And there's a number of things that went wrong in 2020. That's my opinion. And there's a lot of facts to that. I mean, you look at video from Georgia, stuffing ballots underneath tables. The amount of people across this country that showed support for Donald Trump versus someone like Biden, who is in tow with globalists and rhinos left and right. I can't stand for any of that.
No question on. No, you're talking personality and policy. I don't disagree.
I went on the beginning of the fraud that has been shown through a number of. Did you watch 2,000 Mules at all too?
I did. Yep.
Any thoughts about that?
All I can say to your points on Georgia, the 11,000 votes that my opponent asked for Brad Raffensperger, the conservative Secretary of State, to fine for him, I hope does not lead into an indictment for my opponent, because that would be unfortunate. The problem is everybody, you either win or you lose elections. I've lost elections before too. It sucks, you know. We want Republicans to win, the Democrats want their people to win. But in order for a constitutional republic to function, we have to have a peaceful transfer of power. We have to have a way to certify those outcomes. So this isn't about, you know, like I said, my opponent can speak for himself. I think that he's going to make a great case. He has a lot of support. And like you mentioned, whether or not people support him or they support the incumbent president has nothing to do with the actual American people voting, right? That system needs to be crystal clear, and we always have rooms for improvement.
And how can people find you online?
CoreyStapleton.com. You can find me on social media. I'm spending some time in the early states of New Hampshire, Iowa, obviously conservative functions. I was a Republican conservative state Senate leader in Montana back in the day and served 4 years as our Secretary of State.
And thank you for your service. You were in the military as well, yes?
Graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy, drove aircraft carriers and Aegis cruisers. Yep, spent some time deployed overseas, so I, have some strong opinions about, obviously, how do you be a sovereign nation, but at the same time recognize that those who went before us, parents, grandparents, and set this world on a course that, America greatness doesn't just exist now, but into the future. We have some commitments to do that. So I support a strong overseas presence, and we got to stand up to China. China and Russia are not just going to let America continue to be the greatest. So thank you.
And yeah, thank God for our U.S. military. Corey Stapleton, right here joining us at Total News. Let's send it back to you.